The LIRP does have an underwriting process because there's a death benefit. The insurance company wants to make sure you're not going to die anytime in the next 10 years, because if you do die in the next 10 years, then it wasn't a good investment for them, right? It's a great investment for you, but not a great investment for them. And that's why I really like to promote a strategy that calls for anywhere between 4 and 6 different streams of tax-free income, because the LIRP has a very specific function. For most of the people in this room, the thing that would appeal to you about the LIRP is that there's a death benefit that doubles as long-term care, okay? If you can't qualify for the LIRP, you have 4 to 5 other streams of tax-free income that don't show up on the IRS's radar that may contribute to you being in the 0% tax bracket. But you do have to qualify, and it may not be as stringent as a lot of people think. I think you get to a certain point in life where most people have high blood pressure, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people do, and maybe you're struggling with this ailment or that. So, but one strategy is you could sort of send what's called a trial application out to 30 different companies, and there may be a chance that one of those companies is willing to roll the dice on you. So that's also an approach. Great question, thank you. This is what I like to say about LIRPs. All LIRPs are life insurance policies, but not all life insurance policies are LIRPs, okay? I wrote a book, Follow Up to the Power of Zero, it's called Look Before You LIRP, in which I define all of the attributes that an LIRP must have to be truly an LIRP. And an IUL, Index Universal Life, is one of the types of LIRPs that does actually qualify as an LIRP. One of the things that I like about the LIRP is how low the expenses are over the life of the program. You never look at these programs and say, oh, the expenses are really high in the first year, or they're high in the first 5 years. That's like taking a look at your mortgage and saying, most of my money is going towards interest, hardly any is going towards principal, so I'm not even going to buy a house. When you look at these LIRPs, the expenses we're looking at is over the life of the program. They're going to be a little bit more expensive in the early years. They're much less expensive over the life in the later years. But when you average out over the life of the program, it should cost you between 1 and 1.5% of your bucket per year. By the way, go look at your 401k and see what they're charging you. In a lot of cases, it's between 1 and 1.5% per year. So folks, whatever road you take in life, somebody's getting 1.5%. The question is, what are you getting in exchange for that 1.5%? With the LIRP, what you get is you get a death benefit that doubles as long-term care. So you're getting something very useful in exchange for that 1.5%, plus the tax-free growth, safe and productive. So how does the money inside the life insurance policy grow? There's a number of different ways. The IUL is actually the LIRP that I prefer. That's what I wrote. I make that case in Look Before You LIRP. Basically, what's happening is the growth of the money in that bucket is linked to the upward movement of a stock market index, typically the S&P 500. Whatever that stock market index does, you get to keep up to a cap. It could be anywhere between 10 and 13%. And if that index ever goes down in any given year, they're simply crediting you a 0. So historically, when you retro test these things, you're getting anywhere between 6 and 8%. Guess what, folks? If you can get 6 to 8% without taking any more risk than what you're accustomed to taking in your savings account, that's a pretty safe and productive way to grow at least a portion of your retirement plan. Health savings accounts are fantastic. The only caveat I have with health savings accounts is you typically have to spend that money on a qualified health expense. So what I tend to talk about during these events are the things that produce a tax-free retirement income where you can spend it on whatever you want. But the HSA, you know what I love about the HSA? You get a deduction when you put the money in, it grows tax deferred, you take it out tax-free. So there's very, very few investments that do that. So HSAs are great. It would actually have a huge impact. I mean, they would have a lot of surplus revenue this year, but they would probably find a way to spend it, right? But you want to know what percentage of retirement plans across the country are actually in Roth-style accounts? That's like 5%. 5%. So you've got, for every $20 trillion that you have in IRAs and 401ks, you have $1 trillion in Roth IRAs. Why? Because people are addicted to that tax deduction. They want to get that tax deduction today and postpone the payment of those taxes till some point much further down the road when tax rates are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today. What we say is pay the tax today at historically low tax rates so that by the time that tax rates down the road are much higher than they are today. You've done all the heavy lifting. You can then take that money out tax-free. So the only caveat if you have money in a 401k that you want to shift to the Roth 401k is even when you're 59 and a half, they require you to pay the tax. You can do a conversion inside the 401k plan, but they require you to pay the tax from some other non-401k account. So you got to have a lot of money just languishing maybe in your taxable bucket that you're willing to earmark for the tax on that. But if the math makes sense and we're looking at it in a comprehensive way and the math does add up, then that could be a great move. Any 1099s coming out of your taxable bucket count as provisional income. So that's going to be on long-term or short-term capital gains. Any distributions at all from your 401ks or IRAs count as provisional income, and 1/2 of your Social Security counts as provisional income. The IRS adds it up. If as a single person that's more than $34,000, then at that point up to 85% of her Social Security would be taxable if she's single. And if she's married, anything over $44,000, then up to 85% of her Social Security will be taxed. So that capital gains is a 1099, and that counts as provisional income. So that would, in that year, potentially cause Social Security taxation. But I got to remind you that people hate paying taxes. Well, guess what? You should jump at the opportunity to pay taxes at historically low tax rates, because I can guarantee you that the tax rates we experience today are not likely to stick around for long. Capital gains, ordinary income, whatever side of the ledger you're looking at, not likely to stick around long. What I explain in The Power of Zero, if you read the entire book, is that in a rising tax rate environment, there's a perfect amount of money to have in your tax-deferred bucket. You want to have a balance that's low enough that at age 72, when the IRS forces you to take that money out, whatever they force you to take out is equal to or less than your standard deduction in that year, but also low enough that your provisional income prevents you from paying tax on your Social Security. So for most Americans, if you don't have a pension, that's going to be about $350,000, give or take. Everyone's different, but that's sort of a ballpark number. The only way to get to the 0% tax bracket if you do have a pension is to check to see if the company that's offering that pension gives you what's called a lump sum distribution option, which allows you to take the value of that pension and roll it into an IRA, and then convert that IRA to a Roth IRA. And then once you're in the Roth IRA, you can use some financial instruments to create your own pension out of that tax-free bucket. So that's possible. Now, if you work for a school or a government or what have you, most of them don't have that option, in which case read, I believe, Chapter 7, my book, The Power of Zero, on pensions. You worry about the things that you can control. You don't worry about the things that you can't. It could be you may be in a situation where you can't control the pension. Pension will cause Social Security taxation. Don't worry about that. Worry about all your other tax-deferred assets and getting those shifted to tax-free. Worry about the things that you can control. Don't worry about the things you can't. Yeah, so not only does your standard deduction get chopped in half, but your tax brackets also get chopped in half, which means you are going to rise into those higher tax brackets a lot faster. So you may not believe that tax rates are going to double, but if your spouse dies, you are going to experience an immediate doubling of tax rates.
Yeah.